Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we are delighted to have Dr. Jarred Amato, author of Just Read It. Jarred is an award-winning English teacher and the co-founder of Project Lit Community, a national grassroots literacy movement. Jarred enjoys reading, writing, and laughing alongside young people every day and collaborating with fellow educators to improve literacy access, attitudes, and outcomes. Jarred is a two-time MNPS Blue Ribbon teacher and the recipient of the Penguin Random House Teacher Award for Literacy, as well as the Inspiring Educator Award from the Nashville Public Education Foundation. And now I will turn it over to Jarred Amato. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Margaret. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. Whenever you're watching this, I'm super excited to dig into excerpts and parts of this book and really just kind of walk you through my game plan for the 24-25 school year. I'm a full-time English teacher. I'm a dad of two. I recently relocated from Nashville. You can see Kwame Alexander's shirt right there. I had an incredible run in Nashville teaching middle school and high school English for more than a decade, and recently relocated to New Jersey. So I got two little boys downstairs. If you hear them, we're enjoying these last little bits of summer and then gearing up for the fall. And I can't wait to kind of walk you through some things and kind of bring you into the book, and then let you know that hopefully this webinar is just part of the conversation that we're having, part of the work that, this can help you and your colleagues dig into this literacy work that we know is so important. My email address is there. My Substack, I'm writing regularly on there as well. It's a free newsletter for English teachers and literacy leaders, so you can check those out. But please reach out anytime when you get a copy of the book. For those who have already read it, thank you for your support, and thank you for the work that you do every single day. Here we go. This is the question I think about all the time when I'm working with schools and districts, when I'm working in my own classroom. How can we design our literacy block to engage all learners from the first day of the school year to the last? It's not easy, but we know it's important. And so for me, the focus of the next 45 minutes or so are around two things. One, how do we get independent reading right? Specifically, we'll zoom in on this beautiful read and wrap routine that my students and I have developed over the last decade. And then secondly, how do we start the 24-25 school year strong? Specifically around this intro to lit unit is what I call it, and then maintain momentum throughout a school year. And so that's the focus for today. And again, if there's questions that as you're taking notes throughout the webinar, you're pausing things, you're coming back to it, please reach out for clarification, for ideas, for anything that you're thinking about. And so that's the question. We know there's never enough time to teach it all, right? Especially our English teachers, we know that. And so how can we be really intentional with the 45 or 60 or 75 or 90 minutes that we have with our learners every single day? I've been a reader and writer for as long as I can remember. That was a letter I wrote to my second grade teacher. And you can see it with my handwriting was actually not that bad at the time. I'm good at baseball, basketball, reading, and writing. And here I am 30 years later, still loving sports and seeing myself as this literacy champion and literacy coach, right? This champion of readers and writers in my classroom, and then here in my own personal life as well. There I was in my 8th grade graduation with my mom and dad. There's my little man who's been in the dinosaur costume a lot of this summer at our local library. Shout out to all of our local libraries and our school libraries, our public libraries. There I am with a group out of my middle school, our book club crew there. This work is really personal for me. I believe wholeheartedly in the power of books to change lives and save lives. As you can see here, books have this incredible ability to connect us and comfort us, to challenge us and change us. And they've helped me heal. My dad passed away 5 years ago now. Books give us hope at times when we're feeling hopeless. And I know you probably believe the same thing. And you wouldn't be watching this if you didn't believe in the power of books. And at the same time, we know that there's been lots of times where we may have felt hopeless over the last 5 years, right? Coming out of, still in a pandemic, right? But thinking through all the different things that are going on, the cost of raising a child, figuring out what we're going to have for dinner, the polarization in our world, the book banning, climate. There's so many things that are in our, at least for me, that are going on in my brain all the time. And it's harder than it's ever been for me to block out the noise. And so my hope is that this book can help us do that a little bit, right? Like at the very least, there are still so many things that are within our control and things that we can do to feel hopeful. At the same time, we know that this work, this literacy work, whether you're in a middle school or in a high school, an elementary school, if you're in the classroom every day, or if you're supporting teachers in this work, it is hard. I've been in a whole bunch of different settings now. I've been in an urban setting, suburban setting. I've been in an early college. I've been at a high priority school. It's hard everywhere, right? I think that's like, it's hard no matter where you are. And if you look at some of the research, you could find, dozens of studies and statistics around this. You can see here, only 14% of students say they read for fun every day. And that's down, right? 31% of students never or hardly ever read for fun, right? We know that, like, we see these reports, and then we, not we, but they kind of wonder why literacy rates are flat at best, or declining. And we know it's hard. We know that more than half, 46%, but probably even higher, of teens report being online almost all the time, scrolling 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours a day. The term brain rot, I'm gonna come back to that later on for our intro to lit unit, but we know our young people are online constantly. We know that, like, for me, you see that my book in the middle there along the other two. To me, it's all connected, right? Whether you've read The Anxious Generation yet, I read Stolen Focus last year. You can see the subtitle there, Why You Can't Pay Attention, How to Think Deeply Again. It's all connected. And so my thesis, as we dig in today's webinar, is this, right? We can't solve all of it, right? We have, what we can control is carving out 10, 15, 20 minutes a day for our young people to get lost in books and to unplug, to turn off their screens, turn off their phones, keep them in lockers, and create these classroom environments where students can get lost in great books. And hopefully that increases the chances that they're more likely to do that throughout their school day, throughout their day when they leave our classroom. And so I'm thinking a lot about how I wrote this book, like thinking now, like the other research that I would want to connect to it. And so I think there's overwhelming support for just reading, right? For students to be engaged in high quality books, the physical, the real, tangible books, all the time. And so I wrote this. Here's an excerpt I wanted to share quickly. With each passing year, more and more of us, young and old, are spending significant time in front of screens and little, if any, immersed in books. And I wish more adults, particularly our policymakers and educational leaders, acknowledge the urgency of the moment. If we do not value reading, if we do not value our readers, the consequences will be dire. Put another way, if we all agree, right? So, and if then, I'm gonna give you five statements here. If we agree with all of these, right, that reading, like exercise, helps us live healthier, happier lives, and we all want students to live healthy, happy lives. And if we also agree that every student enters our classroom at a different point in their literacy journey, their confidence level, their experience, their interest, their ability, and we know that the pandemic disrupted our literacy routines and in some cases widened gaps, if we also agree that too many students before and after the pandemic do not read willingly, consistently, joyfully, or proficiently, and also spend way too much time in front of a screen, if we agree with all these things, I think you do, if all these are true, then this is also true. Every school must make reading, and specifically our students' reading identity, a priority. And so how do we do that, right? How do we shift attitudes? We're thinking about the fall right now. We're going to get a lot of students who come into our classroom, to our school, on the left side of this screen, not even knowing how to browse in a library, or not knowing what books they like. They feel insecure, anxious. There's these feelings of negativity and doubt. They don't make time for it. They're choosing to grab in those moments of boredom or struggle, they're going to grab the phone or the screen. They're not going to make time for it. If they're over there, the chances of them growing on however we want to measure it, it's not likely, right? There's going to be little growth, if at all, possible decline, right? On the other hand, if we get students into the green, that's the goal, right? If we can get students to feel excited about it, to know what they're into, their interests, their passions, we're able to build confidence, and help them establish these routines, right? We know as parents, as teachers, the power of routine. And so if we can help students get to this green side, right, to the green column, and they feel good about it, and we build confidence, there's going to be improvement. It may not always be linear, it may not happen in a year, but if we all commit to this, there is going to be growth, undoubtedly. And so we know the benefits of reading and exercise. We know it's good for us, right? We know we should be doing it. And so how do we get there? There's a lot of things, right? And these principles are not unique to my book, Just Read It. I leaned on a lot of the literacy giants to write this book. But I think it's important to review nonetheless, right? Time, access, choice, community, how we arrange our classroom, being patient, the mindset that we have as educators, all of it matters, right? As a school, how are we making it fun? How are we building momentum? How are we creating community and a sense of belonging? It's all important, right? And not just for a grade or for a school year, but for a lifetime. And so, as you can see, for me, it's personal. And so you see the little guy here, my first son, Luca, and just being surrounded by books all the time, access and choice and routine and joy, right? And so the reason I share these is to ask this question kind of aloud, right? When does this fade for your students in your school, your district? Like, when does this happen? The excitement here, the smiles, like, when does that, is it third grade? Is it fourth grade? Is it fifth grade? Like, when does that stop? And does it have to, right? My belief is that it doesn't have to stop. My belief actually, right, is that we have to be doing more to keep students this excited, this engaged. And so a lot of the same things apply, but the work, of course, is going to feel a bit different with a sixth grader and a seventh grader and an 11th grader. But my hope, right, and I wrote about it here, so I flagged this, right? My dream for Luca is the same dream that I hold for every child in this world, that he's always surrounded by books, all sorts of books that make him laugh out loud, books that move him to tears, books that he implores his mother to read to him before bedtime, books that he wants to stay up late reading under the covers, books that teach him all sorts of wonderful things about himself and the messy, magical world around him. My hope is that reading always remains meaningful, that it never feels like a chore or punishment, that when Luca gets to school, he is showered with an abundance of patience, love, and support from incredible teachers who receive the same, that he can always find refuge and community in the library, and that when he returns home, while we're sitting around the kitchen table, he will ramble on in excitement about the stories he's reading and the conversations he's having, that his third grade teacher will help him publish his first book and make him feel like a real writer the way Mrs. Madsen did for me. My hope is that Luca's love for literacy and learning does not fade as he heads into middle and high school, like it does for so many of today's adolescents, that expert educators, like all of you, will encourage him to read widely and read often, to engage with different ideas and perspectives, to find his voice, and to pursue his passions. I also wrote this book for these incredible young people that you see here, the founders of our incredible Project Lit community, young people who rallied an entire community around reading and transformed our class project into a national literacy movement. The foundation of our work has been a relentless commitment to independent reading, writing, reflection, and relationships. All right, and then we're going to jump in. 2 quick points, and then we're going to jump in, I promise. All right, 1, there's nothing wrong with students are just reading. Shouldn't that be one of our goals? Instead of asking educators, why are your students reading all the time? We should be asking, how? How are you getting your students to read all the time? Why are we shaming teachers who have successfully managed to get teenagers off their phones and into books? Shouldn't we be asking them to share their strategies and secrets? Why are we making educators feel like they're breaking the rules to provide students with the positive literacy experiences they so desperately deserve? Shouldn't we be thanking them for going above and beyond to nurture the next generation of readers? Why are we okay with students who are just sitting in rows listening to a teacher lecture for an hour, or just answering low-level recall questions from a textbook or TPT handout? or just snapping their friends because they finished their work for the period? Shouldn't we want all students to be engaged and empowered? I think we do. Second, getting to a point where all students are just reading and actually reading is a lot harder than it looks. And so if you're a literacy leader and you walk into an ELA classroom and all 20 or 25, hopefully not 30 or 35 students are just reading, it means their teacher has done a lot of wonderful work behind the scenes. It means their teacher deserves praise, not ridicule. It's also worth pointing out that our students are never just reading. They're thinking critically, asking questions, developing empathy, gaining confidence, relieving stress, setting goals, building stamina, discovering themselves, expanding their vocabulary, connecting with others, improving their concentration, fueling their imagination, acquiring knowledge, sharpening their writing and communication skills, exercising their brain, and so much more. All right. You with me? I think you are. Now jump into the good stuff. Okay. We know starting every school year, we've got a roster full of students. For me, it's usually around anywhere I'd say between 60 and 100, right? Every student has a different relationship with reading. Every student enters our classroom at a different point in their literacy journey. And so what do I try to do? Meet them where they are and to embrace progress over perfection. And I encourage you all to do the same. Okay? Just read it. There are 8 chapters in the book. I'm really proud of how we laid this thing out. I've had a lot of folks reach out and say they appreciate the format as well. What I'm going to focus on today is our read and wrap routine. So much of kind of chapters 1 and 2, and then chapter 4, starting the school year strong with our intro to lit unit. And then we'll jump right in. Later in the year, if we jump back on for a webinar, chapter 6 is all about May and June. For those who are interested in learning more about Project Lit Community and our work there, chapter 8. And then I'll revisit chapter 5 a bunch throughout the year as I think through what that wrap time can look like for us. All right. Shout out to our English teachers. Being an English teacher today in 2024 is really, really hard and really, really important. So thank you. We know the challenges are numerous. Depending on where you are in the country, where you are in the world, the challenges may be different. Some of them are going to be the same, right? For some of you, access is a challenge. The identity, volume, engagement, opportunities to connect with classmates in this shared safe space. It's hard, right? It's hard being a teenager. It's hard being a teacher of teenagers. And so recognizing the challenges are abundant, here's one solution, okay? One solution regardless of what else you've got going on in your block. So a lot of your schools, whether you have a scripted curriculum, whether you have something that you're really proud of, that you love, that you're following, my belief is that we can all carve out 10 to 15 minutes a day for what I call a read and wrap routine. And so you can see here on the slide, 10 to 15 minutes of independent reading, whether that's student self-selected book or potentially a whole class text. Second, following when the timer goes off, students close their books, I come around with bookmarks, we engage in this wrap time. 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes less than that, sometimes more, of writing, reflection, conversation, and community building. And I think wrap works on a number of levels, right? We want to wrap up our reading. We want to wrap and talk about what we're reading. And so you can see the acronym there. I do apologize that I've added another acronym, but I think this one's going to help. I think your students are going to appreciate it when you're lesson planning, when you're thinking through the block. Read and wrap, right? And this wrap time can become really intentional, really purposeful. Depending on the goals that you may have as a teacher, as a department, as a school, you can tailor the wrap time to meet the needs of your students and of your school. And so whether it's writing, reflecting, analyzing, participating, or all of the above. I know some of you who are watching this grew up on Dear, Drop Everything and Read. And I do believe there's value in Dear. I believe in what I'm a believer in what Dear is all about, right? Reading whatever you want, no string, nothing, no assignment coming on the back end of it, just be able to escape and read something good. I loved it. At the same time, I think Dear goes poorly in a lot of cases. right? For a lot of different reasons we don't need to get into now. And so for me, the idea, just to help you kind of think through it, replacing dear with rap, right? And so rap is where we do all these things, right? We dig into meaningful writing and analysis. We can review all sorts of beautiful things. Conflict. Wait, what's internal and external conflict again? First person point of view. How does that work? Setting, right? So we're able to review key literature concepts and skills and standards, right? We're also going to write really awesome things. Book reviews, alternate endings, continuations, letters and emails to authors. We're able to incorporate poetry into here and art, and we're able to appreciate authors' craft and gain inspiration for our own writing. The difference here between a comma, colon, and semicolon, the grammar components rap, I'm going to talk more about. That's something that I've been thinking a lot about this summer. I'm very excited to share. Maybe we just want to build community and talk to one another and engage in conversation. The way we as adults, when we read something, we just want to talk to people about. We reflect and set goals for the future. And so rap, there are a lot of benefits to this routine, right? We're able to honor the needs of each individual reader, community, belonging, engagement, investment, and then ultimately outcomes, right? We're able to, this is the key for me. How can I hold students accountable without killing their love of the book, of reading itself, right? And so that I think is really, I'm really mindful of that. From a classroom management perspective, by starting the block with our read and wrap routine, it allows us to start calmly and smoothly, especially for those who are teaching middle schoolers or have a class after lunch. You know what I'm talking about, right? It allows you as a teacher, for new teachers especially, you're able to collect paperwork, take attendance so you're not getting called by the secretary, right? It allows us to start calmly and smoothly. And really we're setting students up for success for the rest of the block. If students who are coming in who've had a rough block before, a rough night, you're able to sense that, right? And able to check in with a one or two that may need support. And you're able to do that without interrupting anybody else. It's just a really wonderful way to start each block. We're able to serve as a positive reading role model. We're obviously establishing credibility and earning students' trust and respect. For students, I mean, we talked about it from the teacher lens there, but for students, it helps. Unlike Dear, they're able to process what they're reading, deepen their understanding of the text world itself. They're able to get more reps and practice with the skills and standards that I've alluded to. They're able to get book recommendations, offer book recommendations to each other. They're able to set goals for like meaningful goals, right? Not just like, hey, here are the 4 books we have to read this year, and that's it. It's like, no, you're going to set a goal for yourself, and we'll talk more about that. Take charge of their reading and learning, experience success, build confidence, gain inspiration. I had so many students every year who were like, they get into their whatever they're reading, they get inspired to write their own books. And so I have students writing memoir and students who are writing historical fiction based on another project we did in class where they had to interview a grandparent. So we're creating this classroom of readers and writers, which is wonderful, right? Which is what we want. And we have students who are thinking more clearly, critically, creatively. And right, a lot of times we forget what it's like to be a middle schooler or high schooler, and their school day, they're bouncing around to 6, 7 blocks of class periods. Some may be loud, some may be chaotic. This can be a chance for students to reset and re-energize and refocus during what can be a grueling school day. And so the benefits for all of us are there. I believe it's an essential practice if we're serious about this work, right? About nurturing a generation of readers, writers, and leaders, and educating the whole child and centering students in our classrooms and our schools. The protocol is simple, right? And I'm happy to answer questions if you want to see it more in action, talk through it. But for me, this is how it works. There's a welcome, there's a greet, right? There's something on the board. Students are coming in, they're finding their seat. We're checking in, any announcements. I may have the prompt already up. We may be talking through what I want them looking for or thinking about as we read. And then we set the timer, usually between 10 and 15 minutes. We set the timer. The goal is to kind of set the lighting right, ideally some comfortable seating. For me, the goal is to create it. I want my classroom to feel like a coffee shop. That's the vision for it. And then we get into book, and I'm able to circulate and check in with students who may need support. Obviously, there are students who may need to return books, check out again. But once we've got everybody into a book that they've selected, again, it could also be a whole class, a shared text, right? We've set the timer, we set the mood. For me, there are a couple non-negotiables, right? We do not interrupt that time. That reading time is sacred. even if students need to put their head down or take a break, they're not interrupting or messing with that time for anybody else. When the timer goes off, that's when our classroom comes alive and we wrap, right? And then that wrap time, again, can be a standalone thing, or it could be connected to what we're doing for the second half of our block. Whatever we've got going on in our curriculum, our scope and sequence. Sometimes read and wrap can be its own thing, or it could be connected to what we do, throughout the entire block. But that's where you have the ability to personalize that, customize it, to make wrap work for you and your classroom and your team. And so in the book, you're going to see not even a dozen, dozens of prompts that you and your team can add to the playbook, right? And you can see the prompts vary. But the goal that I think I'm even doing right now this summer is going through chapter 5 and our different wrap prompts and thinking about which ones do I definitely want to hit this year? Which ones do I want to make sure, like at a minimum, I want students to be able to do X, Y, and Z over the course of the year? Which prompts make sense at the end of a quarter as part of a project? Which prompts where am I missing? Like what prompts are not in there? So I'm actually reading other books, professional books, to figure out other prompts that I could add to our playbook. It's really, really fun. But to me, wrap time is essential, right? So it's the independent reading followed by this wrap time. And again, it could be on some days it may be 30 seconds or a minute. Quick, turn to a friend, talk about a prediction you have, or a thumbs up or thumbs down, right? It could be quick, or it can be, hey, this week we've been reading for the entire year. Let's spend time writing a really good book review. And that wrap time can be dedicated toward one task. So this is the question that I want you to think about, the one that I'm thinking about, which is, what does this specific group of students need most, right? And so what do I want students to learn and accomplish over the course of a week, over the course of a semester, over the course of a year? Which wrap prompts will help keep students engaged and help us achieve our goals, right? There is no one, right? If I created like a day 1 through 180 wrap prompts, sure, that could be helpful, but I honestly think it's more helpful for us to think through it, based on what our school and our students need. As you can see here, there's a lot of good stuff in chapter 5. And so there's from the quick stuff to the longer tasks to the things that are in between. But I want to share this slide here, right? So this is what I'm thinking about for myself. All right, shorter responses, those would be the quick conversation starters, the check-ins. I want to have a bunch of those ready. I'll probably print those out and have those on some posters. So on the days that we want to go quick, hey, let's find, right, we're going to just chat for a minute and move on to the second half of our block. Great. The extended responses. Here's what I'm thinking at a minimum. For me, thinking through the extended responses, I want to be able to say at a minimum by the end of the school year, this school year 2024-25, I want students to be able to have written at least one really awesome letter and email to an author, ideally a living author who can maybe even pick it, respond to it. At least one all-star book review, one really, really good book talk that they deliver in front of their classmates, strong character analysis, craft analysis, a compare contrast either of books, taking two of the books that they've read, a really strong compare contrast essay analysis, or of character. Monthly, I'm big on like monthly and quarterly, like really thoughtful reflections, making connections between books and themes and characters that they've read. And I have some examples from last year that I thought were really well done from students. At least one really great narrative continuation, which also, again, these are all, we're not doing this for test prep, right? But this also helps prepare students for what they'll see on an end of year assessment, from whatever state you're in. Narrative continuation. The one pager, if you Google one pager, there's a ton of examples out there. There's some different folks who are doing a great job with it. The one pager is beautiful. We do that. A research paper, so taking an issue, a theme, a topic from a book that they've read, and then researching it further. I've done in the past. And so what we're saying is students are going to respond informally all the time, but then also we're carving out these opportunities for them to publish these meaningful products throughout a year. End of quarter projects. You can see we'll share some. There's a sample choice board in the book. I can share a little bit more about that if you're curious. And then the last thing is what I'm thinking about a lot right now, which is how can I develop more prompts that kill two birds with one stone? So prompts that, yes, are checking for understanding of character, conflict, theme, setting, the good stuff there, but also reinforcing a grammar skill or concept. And so I'm trying at the moment right now this summer, I'm mapping out the grammar sequence that I'm trying to, that I think makes sense for my eighth graders, what they need, and then tying that to different prompts. And so I'll be sharing more about that throughout the year. But that's something that I'm very excited about. And I think a lot of us are sensing that too, right? We want students to be able to have command of language, or things that they can't use AI for. They can't. ChatGPT can give them a lot of things, right? But it's not going to give them the actual understanding of how language works, right? And how to have control of that. And there will be plenty of times, I tell students all the time, there will be plenty of times that they're going to have to produce on their own, whether it's in a old school blue notebook with a pen or pencil. Our eighth graders, they take this big test to get into honors English for high school. Like, there are times when there's no technology to rely on, and they're going to have to be able to do it. And so for me, this goes to the larger point in how we started today. My goal is to just have a lot of times where students are not on the computer, right? Where they're engaging in using the pencil again in our writer's notebook, not diagramming sentences, right? I don't think that, but I think there's this other thing I've been thinking about, apologies for the tangent, which is that too often in school, students are not learning new things, right? So much of what they're getting in the block is a review of things they already knew. And so if we can be really intentional about introducing grammar concepts and having them apply that to their writing, I think it's really powerful. So as you can see, my approach to rap for this coming school year is taking, these are alphabetical, so they're not sequential at the moment, but how can I make sure that every student, mastery, I think gets overused in education, but if we think about it, can they effectively use and understand all the concepts here in context of what they're reading independently? So then also noticing in their independent reading book how an author uses appositive phrases or uses a colon or semicolon, identifying types of sentences, right? So how can we connect that? And if you're listening and you're excited about this, please reach out. I'd love to collaborate on how we can connect these two, right? Our grammar and our rap. Because I think it's really, I think there's a chance to do something really powerful with also not taking up too much time. I think we could do it in 5 or 10 minutes a day. So that's a good transition, I think, to how I'm approaching the school year. For me, there are 4 constants. And then at the bottom, you can see we have our units, right? We have our shared text, our whole class text, like Fahrenheit 451, you see there, Romeo and Juliet, and Night. We have our 3 required texts. We have a bunch of our units, right? These beautiful units that I'm happy to share more about at the bottom. But then the 4 things that are ongoing: read and rap, grammar, as I alluded to, vocabulary, and that's where I'm excited to dig into. I've been generating this list. I've gone through different lists of. I've been just kind of looking through different lists to create one of my own, which is like 100 of the most used, most important Greek and Latin roots and prefixes. So if I can say to a family, to a student, by the end of this year, you're going to have demonstrated mastery of 10 or 12 grammar concepts, which will be really helpful in the ACT and SAT in high school and in your own writing, right? And you're going to have a command of 100 plus roots and prefixes. You're going to read independently every single day. Sometimes it'll be a shared text. Sometimes it'll be your own. And then you're also going to have an article of the week, which again, I'm happy to go through the entire protocol. That's a great school year, right? On top of what you're going to get in our units, right? That are these really authentic projects, and there's some great stuff that we do on top of that. But out of those 4 that you see highlighted there, read and rap, grammar, vocabulary, article of the week, you're getting your fiction, you're getting your nonfiction. We're hitting a ton of standards, right? Almost all of them. In fact, if we're intentional with the questions we're asking in response to the article of the week and what we're looking for there, we're hitting a lot. And so that's where I feel really good about my game plan and my approach for the year. So please, if you're seeing this and you want to ask questions, through email, follow the newsletter and things like that. But that's where I'm at right now, and I'll let you know if things change. Rap prompts, right? So we're thinking through the rap prompts. I should have put this up there earlier. I apologize. Our rap prompts, there's a ton around reading identity that we'll think about early on. Our shorter prompts that we talked about. So what I was doing here was looking through the book and then flagging the ones that I think are going to be the ones that I go to in our classroom. So you can see them here. The extended task. And then our projects. The ABCs of independent reading is a really fun one. Character book face-offs, we saved that from March Madness. It was really fun. Students would take 2 books or 2 characters and put them head-to-head in a matchup and pick a winner. Our lit awards slideshow at the end of the year. And so what you see here, what I did was I went through the book through chapter 5 and started to sort them, right, for myself, for how I wanted to approach this coming school year. The shorter prompts, the extended ones, the projects. And so what you see is kind of what I just spoke about, which is that at a minimum, students are reading several outstanding books over the course of a year and engaging in authentic conversation and meaningful reflection. They're thinking critically and reviewing a wide range of skills, standards, and concepts. And they're writing a lot on top of the other things that the other essays and projects they're working on. All parents want this, right? I know we live in a time where there is a lot of polarization. There is a lot of outside noise, but overwhelmingly, our families, we all, I'm a parent, we want this, right? This is a great year, and so I feel really good about where I'm at heading into the year. Which brings us to our final point, our final focus for the webinar: starting the year strong. And so, to get students to buy into read and rap, I think it will depend on the group that you have, right? Each group is different. Sometimes my first and second blocks maybe, hey, we're ready to hit the ground running day 1, week 1. Other groups, it takes a little bit longer, right? And so, again, depending on where you are in the group that you have, you may need to do a little bit of work month 1 to create that investment and the buy-in that we're looking for. And so this intro to lit unit, I love it. It's constantly evolving for me. But I think in chapter 4 of the book, when you go through and pick out the parts, the tasks, the ideas, the activities that you like, and then add in things that you already are doing, and you've got yourself an awesome unit 1, which lays the foundation for a fruitful year of reading and writing. And so here it is at a glance, right? And the book has it in detail, but I'll kind of walk you through a bunch of this. Attitude survey and interest survey, and our book tasting, the 1, 2, and 3. Week 1, we want to get to know the students in our room, right? Who they are as people, their interests, their passions, their values, and then who they are as readers, right? Do they? And in the book, I talk about different names for the readers, which I think is fun. I think you may appreciate that. The bike riders, and no, I'm blanking on the names of the different readers that we have that come into our room, right? And so we get a sense of that. We're figuring out who our students are, what they need from us. We're connecting them to our classroom library and to our school library. We're visiting the library, ideally, if we can get in there. The partnership, please take time to establish or reestablish a partnership with your school librarian if you don't have one already. That's super important. I can talk more about that if you're interested in what that can look like. We're obviously gonna get some some data, right? So we're gonna get a sense of who students are as readers and writers. So our school administers the NWEA MAP test. We're getting a sense of where we're building community. Number 5, I'll share like the best 9 and 10 things essay. It's one of my favorite things every year. The best 9 is a 3x3 grid full of pictures, images, family photos, students' favorite, athletes' favorite, TV shows. Their best 9 is a grid that we print out and hang on our bulletin board. So everyone's best 9 is up, and we're using that best 9 they create to help write a 10 things personal essay. And it's inspired by a letter that was written by Jason Reynolds. and students love it. Every year they end up writing about all sorts of wonderful things about themselves, a way to introduce themselves to me and to their classmates. And this year, connected to number 8, students are going to, in that first letter / essay that they write, there are 10 items. So essentially it's, here are 10 things that you should know about me. And then they write, paragraphs on each. I'm going to require 2 of the 10 focus on these areas, right? So 8 will be up to them. We can write about anything they want. Their love of LeBron James, their love of tacos, their love of Cape Cod, whatever it ends up being, right? But 2 are going to be, 1, they're going to describe their relationship with technology and social media. And that's going to lead into our article of the week, which I'll talk about, right? So 1, they're going to talk about, are you constantly online? Do you have brain rot? What's your relationship with your phone? How do you feel about social media? How many hours a day? Things like that. So they're going to reflect on that in 1. And then 2, they're going to talk about their relationship with reading, right? Who they are as a reader. So I can get to know, are they reading a lot? Do they have favorite authors? Do they have favorite genres? Are they only reading when it's required in school? Things like that. So those would be 2, then the other 8 are up to them. They're also going to write an email. Teachers complain, students, you see them, they go viral sometimes, like the emails that students send that are, in poor taste. Well, let's teach them. Let's show them, here's what we expect. Here's what a proper email looks like, and then give them a chance to practice. And so the first email that I receive from every student will be similar to that reading identity part. It'll be letting them introduce themselves to me as a reader and laying out the goals that they have for themselves. And so we'll set some goals in class, and then they'll publish that email. They'll take their notes and write a really nice email. And so as you can see, we're starting to build out the first couple weeks, right? We'll brainstorm like why reading is important. We'll have these why we read index cards. It'll be beautiful. And the article of the week. So again, the article of the week, every single week, occasionally we may skip a couple weeks if it's a short week or if we've got a lot going on. But by and large, 20 or 30 weeks of the year, students are assigned an article of the week. And what I'm doing this year, a little bit differently, for those who follow Kelly Gallagher, each week the article is kind of its own thing, a standalone, building background knowledge on different current events and different topics related to our world and our society. What I'm doing is focusing the first unit around this idea of reading, learning, and growing up in a digital age. So every article of the week will examine either brain rot or the myth of multitasking or the importance of reading real books, right? So different texts. Eventually, some weeks there may be choice, right? Students could be picking from a bunch of different articles that I have that I've compiled over the years, and that will culminate in this really awesome. I call it a dynamic debate. Again, I can share more resources around that, and this argumentative essay. And so we'll be reading about reading and their relationships. So all of it's connected, right? Our independent reading time is connected to our AOWs, and it's all with the goal of helping students to think critically about themselves and their place in this classroom and the importance of reading, right? And you see where we're going. And so then to me, I'm really, really excited about that. Again, I'll share the articles that I've picked out and our game plan for that on our Substack. Picture book stuff we're saving for the end of the year. You see that there. And a whole bunch of fun icebreakers that are not too icebreakers are polarizing, right? So I know you may have your feelings about them, right? But these are some that I think are really good. We love them. They're not anxiety inducing. The one that I'll flag here just for you all, books that made me. So in addition to their best 9 grid, students are going to make a grid. It could either be a 2x2 if they're not a big reader and they don't have many books to if there aren't that many books that have made them who they are, or they can go the 3x3. So it'd be a fun challenge for your staff as well. What would be the 9 books that have made you? Books from your childhood, from your adolescence, from your teaching career, books that you love teaching. Who are the books? What are the books that have made you the person that you are? And then that would also be printed out. And so you have this classroom that comes alive with these best 9s, right? So full of students and their identity, and you see their favorite athletes and their family and their pets and all these beautiful things. And then also these 4 these other grids full of books, right, from childhood, maybe from last year. And so that's one that I wanted to flag for you. as we start the year strong. You can see here that text set is what I'm building out, right? An intro to lit text set that you can then pick from, your students can pick from. I will have that online for you. You can see here, the 5 that I have prioritized right now. So the power of boredom, the myth of multitasking, brain rot. Walter Dean Myers wrote this incredible op-ed years ago now, where the people of color in children's books. It's outstanding. I've used that one in the past. How to be a better reader, also a great way to start the year. And so you see our community building. I think I touched on a couple there. The only other one I'll add here. Oh, it's a sweet thing. My son's name is Lucas, which also why I love it. There's a scene in Luca. If you haven't watched the movie, there's a clip on YouTube, Silencio Bruno, and if you look at that clip, it's about 2 minutes long. It allows you to perfectly introduce or reintroduce the plot diagram, exposition, rising action, literal climax. Luca and Alberto are literally the highest point in the air. They're falling back into the ocean. And then this really nice resolution of overcoming your fear. Silencio Bruno, right? It's this beautiful scene, helps build community, but also helps you reinforce plot, right? And then every story is going to follow a similar plot. And so that's there. Highly recommend that. Connections, if you're a Wordle and connections person, students come up with make their own connections puzzle to then have their classmates try to solve. That was a blast. But you see what we're doing, right? Every single day, the first couple weeks, we're building community. I'm getting to know them. I'm collecting information, all this data that'll become part of what I call a literacy dashboard. So you have every student on your roster in your school, and you have their test score data, sure. You have their attendance from previous years, behavior, their reading attitude survey. You have that. How many books do they self-report reading last year? You have their reading score. You have, if you give a writing assessment, you have writing data. And so what you're doing is you have this dashboard that you update throughout the year that allows us to really have these really wonderful conversations about students with students and with families, as opposed to relying on one data point. And there it is, right? And so to me, this is what I do every fall. And I wait usually till week 2 or 3. And by that point, the rosters, there shouldn't be much moving of students. And I'm also able to put names to faces. And so I'm able to look at that and start to plug everything in. And then you're able to make a plan of action. You can look, my first block, here's what I'm seeing. My second, third, fourth. So yes, I have this game plan, right? I know where we're all going. I have our read and wrap. I have our article of the week. I have our vocabulary, our grammar, our units. But then how I can adjust each block, I can make adjustments, add things, take things out, slow things down, speed things up based on the students that are in that room. And that's where this dashboard really comes into play. A quick thing that I think about a lot, just something to have on. I know I was talking a lot, and there's a lot of data points, but really at a simple level, if we focus on this, right, this formula, increasing book access and improving attitudes, we see better outcomes, right? Access and attitudes leads to outcome. For some schools, access isn't an issue, right? But for some it is. So you got to start there. If students don't have access to great books, it's harder to improve reading attitudes, right? If you've got the access, then the focus is on the attitude part, and that's where we come together. And I'll close with a couple of thoughts around this idea of English departments, even, right? We may have different philosophies, different approaches. That's okay. We don't all have to see the English block the exact same way. In fact, I'm sure you have some things you've heard today you may agree with, some things you may disagree with. That's okay. That's encouraged. My hope is that you take things, right? You work together as a team to develop a plan that makes sense for your school and for community and for the students, right? And so the attitude part is hard work. So I think the attitude, how do we improve reading attitudes? We've got to make sure that our English teachers are feeling good, that we are discussing books together, that we're reading and writing together. And if we're feeling good as a department and in the direction we're going, then we're more likely then to be back in our rooms doing the same. I've got plenty of data to share with you, but at a simple level, right? If students are reading and rapping every day, um, if they're engaged, if we're able to have like this targeted grammar instruction, high quality informational text through our article of the week all the time, and they're writing dozens of objective summaries, and they're figuring out author's claim and citing evidence, and right, we're doing all of this, and we're analyzing literature, and we're writing continuations, and they're writing their own narratives, right? Scores are going to go up, right? Because in a lot of places, if we're being honest, if we audited, right, if we truly audited what was happening in a lot of our classrooms, right, it's a lot of teacher talk, right? Maybe students are passively participating, but if we're getting to a point where students are truly engaged and empowered in their learning, in their reading and writing, scores are going to go up, and you can see that there. A couple quick things to think about as we start a year and we close out today. Only 1% of our high school students will go on to major in English. That's it. I know if you're watching this, you're an English teacher, you have your favorite books, you believe in this stuff, and I get it. I'm there with you. But think about what our students are going where they're headed after they leave our classroom, and what do they need, right? And so when we think about that, I think about the student here, Jakayla. And Jakayla now she's graduated college. She's in a graduate program, exercise science. She graduated from Belmont University with like a 3.89 or 3.9 GPA. And there she was reading Dear Martin, meeting Nick Stone, then facilitating a conversation with Nick at a local bookstore. Shout out to Parnassus. But like, I think about Jakayla a lot. In the book, I talk about her. She didn't need the classics, right? And again, this isn't a knock on them, but she just needed to have time to read books every single day and feel seen, to feel valued, to feel affirmed, to help her make sense of herself and the world around her. And just be in that environment was what she needed. And she graduated with the literacy skills that she needed to do really well in the ACT, to then go on to college and thrive, right? And so is it literacy or literature, right? In this conversation, there's a wonderful conversation with two brilliant gentlemen, Trevor Noah and Jason Reynolds, and they talk about that, the importance of literacy, right? And so that conversation definitely worth checking out. It's a few years ago now, but just really, I think will help your department think about this, or your students too, talking through this. And so what does that mean for me, right? It means that I'm really excited for the school year. As much as I love being with my family and enjoying the slower pace this summer, I love the fall, being back in the room where I can meet students where they are and help support them on this journey, right? And I know that one rich reading year, regardless of what happens to the next level for them, one rich reading year is better than none. And one rich reading year can change a student's entire trajectory. And so what I'll do when we get, right now our building is being renovated, so I can't do too much, but just a couple quick things to kind of think about, especially for the new teachers that are watching. Supplies, the big things that I need: composition books for our wrap time, and those stay in the room. Lots of sticky notes, lots of index cards, lots of colored pencils and Sharpies. Bulletin boards, I talked about the best 9 and our books that made me, so those will be 2. Wall of Fame for student work, an author spotlight, and a chance to a recommended reads, right? Chance for all of us to give recommendations, and those could become book. Students may design alternate book covers. Our book reviews may go up there, but a spot for that for our recommended reads, of course. One other quick thing: if you've got a great art teacher in the building, things to think about over the course of the year, ways that you can beautify your school: stairwells, murals, lockers, hallways, things to think about there. So that's Jerry Kraft, author of New Kid. And you could see a teacher spent her summer painting those lockers, not knowing that Jerry would see it, love it. And when he was in New York visiting, he showed up at the school unannounced, signed the locker. It's just an incredible thing, right? And just speaks to this work that we love. So I wanted to just give you a quick, just back of your head, if you've got someone in mind that may want to partner on that project, do it. All right. Lastly, I alluded to this, and I think there's enough polarization already, right? There's enough, like in everything. I'm a big sports fan. The hot take culture is exhausting, right? I really don't take the bait anymore and engage in it. And in fact, I was interviewed for this article that you see here. To me, it's the wrong way to be going about this work. There's room for both. And I think for me, being in a new school now, this is my third year in a new building where there are a few required texts, there is value in whole class novels. 100% there is value, right? For a lot of different reasons that we don't have to spend time talking about now. And so my belief is that there's room for both, right? And that choice has to be part of the equation too, right? There's got to be room for it, right? If the only books students are reading are the 3 or 4 that you've picked out, we're doing it wrong, right? And so I'm not getting into the way I wanted to close is the idea that like I'm not this for and against. I think is unproductive, right? And so for me, it's thinking through like what am I for and against, right? As a teacher, as a dad, to me, I'm for any text that gets our students into reading, back into it, right? Like back into our classroom. My little Luca that I've talked about a bunch, he loves bugs right now. So we're reading about bugs out at the public library, and we're in his bug phase. And he's out of that. He wants Halloween books. We were at TJ Maxx yesterday, and we found all the Halloween books are on display. Did we get a bunch? Of course we did, right? And so I am for texts that get our students, for him to not want to go to and pick up a toy, but to sit on the floor in TJ Maxx and read aloud a book, right? And we did that. The same thing in our classroom. I'm against any text that pushes our students away, literally and figuratively, from our classroom and from our school. And that's where you start to see the connection between our, what we do in our English class and how that's connected to attendance and behavior, right? Creating an environment where students are excited to be in that room and be part of our community. And so what am I for? I'm for students and educators working together to develop a game plan that makes sense for your classroom, for your school, and your community. I'm for a daily independent reading routine where every student in every classroom, not just a few, right, is encouraged to read and respond to a variety of beautiful, rich, and complex texts. You can see here this idea of reading widely and reading often. This was just a snapshot of a semester a couple years ago when this is the other benefit for teachers, right? So if you're an administrator listening, or a teacher, right? Like I get my best reading done alongside my students. And that's where I'm able to grow as an educator and read all sorts of beautiful things. So I'm able to make recommendations, right? Whether it's memoir here or some sports or fantasy or graphic novels or novel in verse, right? I'm able to read widely and read often. So then I'm able to be better equipped to make recommendations and support my young readers, right? And so the idea is that if we're all committed to reading widely and reading often, it's a beautiful thing. Our project community believes wholeheartedly in reading widely and reading often. So if you're watching this and you want to learn more about our community and the work we do, please reach out. We'll be getting ready to work on students and teachers and librarians across our country. There are about 2,000 chapters, project lit chapters, who are part of our movement. And we'll work together this fall to develop the next book list, right? The books you see here were announced last November and December. And so we'll have our 24-25 collections, our middle grade and young adult collections will be announced later this fall. And so we're excited about that process. And so again, if you're interested in learning more about what book club looks like, what this work looks like, we'd be happy to welcome you to our community. And you can see like the project lit work grew out of the one classroom at Maplewood High School, where I was able to work with incredible group of young people for 4 years, right? 4 years, and in the book I talk about that journey a lot. And so from that classroom grew this national and actually international movement, which includes people like all of you, and some of you may be part of our community, so you've been familiar, but teachers and librarians and young people who believe in the power of books to change lives and save lives. And so again, I'm happy to share more about the work that we do as a community from a chapter leader lens, so from the adult lens, and also from a student lens. And what am I for? I am for celebrating and cheering on our readers the same way we champion our athletes. You think about it, a lot of you were super inspired by the Olympics that just wrapped up, right? Incredible, incredible, incredible. Thinking about the way we want to recognize the readers in our building. Of course, I'm for flooding all schools and communities with great books and for giving students so much access and choice and time and love and support that they can't help but say, I am a reader. Thank you all so much. I wish all of you the best of luck this school year. Thank you for championing your young people, but also for championing this book. Just Read It was a labor of love. I'm so glad it's out in the world and finding people. And I'll turn it over to Margaret here shortly. But again, just best of luck this school year. Thank you for all the work you do. And please do not hesitate to reach out as you dig into the book or you're finished watching this video and have questions.
Thank you, Jarred. That was full of information, especially for the beginning of the school year. Lots of helpful things for our listeners out there. Thank you again to our presenter today, Jarred Amato.
Thanks, everyone.